Terran Contact Part 2-1, The Meeting of Unequals. The Galactic Council chamber aboard Unity Prime was an architectural marvel, a floating jewel of diplomacy suspended in the void between star systems. It had been designed to embody the ideal of unity. Transparent crystalline walls that revealed the endless stretch of space, a circular layout meant to symbolize equality among species, and an atmosphere tailored to accommodate the Council's many diverse members. But despite the grandeur, the chamber now held a tension thick enough to cut with a blade. Admiral Ryan Carter sat at the negotiation table, his face an unreadable mask. His uniform was pristine, the deep navy fabric pressed into sharp lines, though the medals adorning his chest spoke of battles fought and victories won. Across from him, the towering form of Warlord Vactyl loomed, his chitinous exoskeleton glistening under the chamber's artificial light. The Xelanar leader's mandibles twitched in irritation, his six-clawed fingers drumming against the polished black surface of the table. The Council representatives, an assembly of species both ancient and powerful, watched the exchange with silent anticipation. This was the first time humanity had been given a place at this table, not as a subject species, not as a desperate petitioner, but as an equal. And that fact alone unsettled many of them. The war between humanity and the Xelanar had not gone as expected. The Xelanar Empire, one of the oldest militaristic civilizations in the known galaxy, had dismissed humanity as just another upstart species. They had conquered countless worlds, subjugated dozens of races, and crushed resistance with ease. When their scouts had first encountered Terran colonies, they had assumed their conquest would be routine, a swift invasion, immediate surrender, and the integration of humanity into their ever-expanding dominion. But they had miscalculated. The war had raged far longer than expected, and instead of breaking, the humans had only become more dangerous. They adapted, they learned, and they retaliated with a viciousness that shook even the most hardened Xelanar warlords. Entire fleets were lost to human ambushes. Their soldiers faced horrors they had never known before, and now, after years of conflict, the Xelanar had been forced into an unthinkable position: negotiations. Warlord Vactyl finally spoke, his deep, guttural voice resonating through the chamber. "This meeting is pointless," he snarled, his mandibles clicking with frustration. "The Xelanar Empire does not beg for peace. We have not been defeated." Carter leaned back in his chair, his expression calm, almost amused. "That's an interesting claim," he said, voice steady. "Considering that your last 3 fleets were annihilated before they even reached our core worlds." Vactyl's crimson eyes narrowed. "You are an insignificant species. Your worlds are young. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. The only reason this war has continued is because of your reckless savagery. Your refusal to surrender when it is a logical choice." Carter exhaled slowly. He had heard this argument before. The Xelanar, like many older species, saw war as a game of probabilities and calculated risk. In their eyes, surrender was not weakness. It was efficiency. Lesser species knew when to bend the knee, when to acknowledge superior firepower, when to accept defeat. But humans didn't play by those rules. Carter met Vactyl's gaze without blinking. "You misunderstand us, Warlord. You think our refusal to surrender is illogical. That's where you made your mistake." He leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. "It's not about logic. It's about resolve." The chamber remained silent. The other council members shifted in their seats, some glancing between the 2 leaders with apprehension. Carter continued, his tone calm, but carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "You thought we would break because that's how your previous conquest went. You assumed you understood us because we looked weaker than you. But let me make something very clear. Humanity does not kneel. We don't surrender. You came into this war expecting easy prey. Instead, you found an enemy who refused to die quietly." Vactyl's claws dug into the table's surface, leaving deep gouges in the polished stone. His posture was rigid, his mandibles twitching in frustration. Carter could see the warlord struggling to maintain the illusion of superiority, But the cracks were beginning to show. The reports had reached him. The whispers among the Zellar ranks. The fear that had begun to fester in their warriors' hearts. Terrans were unlike any species they had encountered before. It wasn't just their technology, though humanity had a remarkable tendency to innovate under pressure, turning every loss into a lesson, every setback into a new strategy. It wasn't just their military prowess, though they had demonstrated an ability to wage war in ways the Zellar had never imagined. No, it was their mindset. Carter knew the stories the Zellar soldiers told one another in the dark. The horror tales of human troops fighting even after losing limbs, of pilots ramming their own ships into enemy cruisers rather than accepting defeat, of entire battalions standing their ground against overwhelming odds and emerging victorious. Humans did not fear death the way the Zellar did. They did not fight for conquest, for glory, or for some imperial doctrine. They fought because they refused to be conquered, and that terrified the Zellar. Carter tapped the table twice, bringing up a holographic display. The projection showed the latest battle reports. Humanity's forces had not only repelled the most recent Zellar offensive, but they had pushed deep into enemy-controlled space, striking at supply lines and outposts with surgical precision. The tide of war had turned. We could keep fighting, Carter said simply. We could push further. We could take this war all the way to your throne world if we wanted to. He leaned back again, crossing his arms. But we're giving you an out. A chance to walk away before this gets worse for you. Vactal's breathing was heavy, his claws twitching with barely restrained fury. He had spent decades believing in the superiority of his empire, in the certainty of its eternal dominance. But now, for the first time in his long military career, he faced a species that would not bow. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Vactal exhaled sharply, his mandibles clicking as he turned to the council. If peace is to be discussed, he said through clenched fangs, it will be on equal terms. A small smile touched Carter's lips. That was as close to an admission of defeat as the Zellar would ever give. The council members exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves. Humanity had not just survived its first galactic war. It had earned a seat at the table. Carter stood, offering a single nod. Then let's talk. And with that, humanity's place in the galaxy was sealed, not as subjects, not as prey, but as equals. Perhaps even something more. 2. The unbreakable resolve. Warlord Vactal paced within his private chambers aboard Unity Prime, his claws clicking against the cold metal floor. The negotiations had concluded for the day, yet the tension in his mind refused to ease. The humans had fought harder than any species he had ever encountered. Their refusal to surrender wasn't just defiance, it was something else. Something more dangerous. He activated his terminal with a flick of his claw, bringing up the latest intelligence reports. Holographic projections flickered to life. Battle footage, intercepted communications, classified reports from Zellar commanders. The truth was there, undeniable and horrifying. Humanity was unlike any other race the Zellar had encountered in their centuries of conquest. Their fleets were not the largest. Their weapons were not the most advanced. Their numbers were not the most overwhelming. And yet, battle after battle, they had done the impossible. Vactal clenched his mandibles as he replayed a specific recording footage from a Zellar battleship's internal cameras during the siege of Acheron IV. The Battle of Acheron IV. Acheron IV was supposed to have been an easy target, a newly established human colony with minimal defenses, ripe for annexation. The Zellar had sent a standard invasion force, 3 capital ships, a dozen escort frigates, and thousands of ground troops. The plan had been simple. Overwhelm the colony's automated defenses, secure key infrastructure, and force a surrender within hours. But humanity did not surrender. The first sign that something was wrong came when the colony's orbital defenses, though primitive compared to Zellar standards, refused to fall easily. The humans had repurposed outdated mining lasers and reconfigured them into makeshift anti-ship cannons. They had rigged cargo freighters with explosives and piloted them on collision courses with the Zelenar capital ships. The footage shifted to the ground assault, where things had gone from bad to catastrophic. Zelenar forces had expected a quick planetary occupation. Instead, they were met with a resistance that defied all logic. The colony's civilians, farmers, engineers, even children fought alongside trained soldiers. Improvised explosives turned entire city blocks into death traps. Human snipers picked off officers with terrifying accuracy. Even in retreat, the humans made them pay for every inch of ground. And then came the moment that had shaken Vactyl to his core. A captured Zelenar commander was being escorted through a burning street when a lone human soldier emerged from the wreckage of a collapsed building. His armor was scorched, his body riddled with wounds, but he still stood tall, gripping his rifle with unshakable determination. The Zelenar soldiers raised their weapons, demanding his surrender, but the human didn't drop his rifle. Instead, he activated his communicator and broadcast a single message to his comrades. "Give them hell, boys." Then he pulled the pin on a grenade strapped to his chest. The screen cut to static. Vactyl felt his claws tremble. He had seen such reports before, too many times. Humans didn't surrender. Even in the face of certain death, they fought. And they didn't fight for conquest or glory or even survival. They fought for something else, something intangible, something that no Zelenar could understand. A cause, a belief, a refusal to be conquered. Fear spreads in the Empire. The repercussions of the war had spread far beyond the battlefield. Even now, whispers of human resilience circulated through the Zelenar Empire. Soldiers spoke in hushed voices about how humans seemed to thrive in chaos, how their tactics defied reason. There were reports of Zelenar deserters, warriors who had lost the will to fight, who had witnessed human tenacity and realized that this war could not be won in the conventional sense. One particular intercepted message sent chills through Vactyl's carapace. "I have fought in 100 battles. I have crushed empires beneath my feet. But the humans do not break. I watched my squad cut them down, only for them to crawl forward, dragging broken bodies just to keep fighting. They are not like us. They do not yield. They do not stop. I fear we have awakened something we cannot contain." These weren't the words of a low-ranking soldier. This was a report from General Zerkath, one of the most decorated commanders in the Empire. If even he was afraid, then the war had already shifted beyond anyone's control. The conversation that changed everything. Vactyl's claws tightened into fists. He could not show fear, not in the face of the Council, not in the presence of the humans. But his mind was already unraveling the truth. A soft chime from his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he commanded. A Zelenar intelligence officer stepped inside, bowing respectfully. "My warlord, there is something you must see." The officer handed him a datapad. On it was a recorded conversation between two human soldiers stationed on a warship near the front lines. Vactyl played the recording, listening carefully. "First soldier, they really thought we'd just roll over and take it. Like we were some backwater species they could stomp out. Second soldier, they don't get it. They don't get us. We're not fighting for some emperor or some conquest. We're fighting for each other, for our homes, for every kid back on Earth who deserves a future. First soldier, yeah, they took from us. Now we take from them." The second soldier chuckled darkly. "Second soldier, you know what scares them the most? It's not our ships, not our weapons. It's the fact that no matter what they do, no matter how many times they knock us down, we get back up. And we hit back harder." Vactyl exhaled slowly as he set the datapad down. The humans didn't fight because they were ordered to. They fought because they chose to. The Zelenar had made the mistake of believing that humanity's smaller numbers and younger civilization made them weak. But it was precisely because of those things that humanity had hardened itself. They had evolved in adversity. They had adapted in ways that no empire had expected. They had an unbreakable resolve. The war's turning point. For the first time in centuries, Vactyl felt uncertainty creeping into his soul. This war had been meant to expand the Zellar Empire's reach, to secure another vassal species. Instead, it had birthed something new, something that could no longer be ignored. Humanity had proven that it was more than just another species in the galactic hierarchy. They had forced the Zelenaar, a race that had never before considered peace, to the negotiation table. And perhaps worst of all, they had taught the galaxy that there were still forces capable of defying even the most powerful empires. The war was not yet over, but Vactyl knew, deep down, that the future had already been decided. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again.